Hello everyone, my name is Saurabh Kumar and I welcome you all to my video series of AWS where we have reached now in part number 19. In this session, we will be going through the overview of IAM, Identity Access Management, where we will be covering theoretical part of IAM, details brief of IAM, as well as by end of the session I will be demonstrating one practical related to MFA, multi-factor authentication. So in this session most of the part we will be covering about IAM. At the end we will be doing one practical how to set up the MFA, multi-factor authentication, for your AWS root account. So let's begin. So first we have to understand what is identity management is. Before I go to IAM detail, I have to be knowing that what is identity management. And you all guys are already having some of the experience with Windows or Linux computer, or even with some other components where you generally do the login process. So whenever we talk about login, somehow what you are doing is you are giving your identity to the device, to the Windows, to the Linux, telling that I am this person, and the computer, the device, the operating system, they checks your identity, and on the basis of that either they can allow you to do the login, either they can stop you to the login. For example, I have a Windows machine, I have an user account there. So whenever I need to use the laptop, whenever I want to use the laptop, definitely I need to log in, and to do the login, what computer will ask me? It will ask me to tell my identity, and my username is my identity, and the password is the way to verify that who you are. So identity management means what? In easy way we can say, because we know there are two type of premises can be. One can be the on premises infrastructure maybe you have, or it can be maybe cloud based. So identity management happen in both scenario. Either the resource you have at your on premises, either the service or resource you are having at cloud, you will be performing identity management there. Identity management is the first key when you are accessing the service, when you are using the resource. So here you see about identity management, access technology, you can say authentication roles, entity productivity, privileges certificates, system decrease, protection cost, digital increase. These all terms, there are very many number of terminologies are relevant to this particular term called identity management. So we know that maybe for example if you have a Windows machine, in your Windows machine, if you want to do your identity management, what do we do generally? We create here a user account, and in that user account we are going to set the password. So if any user who comes to use that machine, they need to have the username and they need to have the password. If they supply both of these things, username and password both, then computer will identify them, and accordingly they will allow or either deny to log in and use the resource or service available over there. So same happen when you have maybe centralized domain type of condition infrastructure. Maybe you have a domain based network. So in domain what happen? In domain you have one computer where you are running your Active Directory maybe, and you have a computer, client computer here. So when you go there, you type your username and password to this machine, but that username and password will be sent to the Active Directory. Active Directory is the one who is having all those information, what is the username, what is the password and all. So he will verify, this device will verify, and accordingly this user will be either allowed or either denied to access the resource, to log in first of all. Right now we are talking about the there are two terms, let me mention here. One is called as a authentication and one is called as a authorization. So we have to be very clear with these two terms, authentication and authorization. Authentication means here we are talking about the identity. When we are talking about authorization, again it comes to identity. So for example, there is a user and the username is, let's say that username is Paul. So when Paul is trying to log into the machine, he will tell his name and the password. By checking these two things, he will be authenticated first. Once he is authenticated, he can log into the machine. Once he logs in, thereafter authorization comes as a next. Meaning that once he is logged in, after that what kind of power or permission he has. Is he the administrator of the computer? Is he a guest? Is he a standard user account? Is he having the power administrator? Is he the member of power administrator group? So what kind of power he has, what kind of authority he has, that comes as a authorization. But who he is, his identity will be checked in this authentication part. So let's continue now. Once you already understood what is identity management is, now it will be easy for you to understand the IAM as well. So let's move to the next slide. Here you see authentication technology. So there are some of the cases and here are the technology solution. In which case, what solution do we use? So for example, if you are having operating system access, in that scenario, what technology we use? So as I was explaining, we use Active Directory. Maybe you are having a domain based environment where on one machine you want to log in. So what kind of technology will be used to do the authentication process? There is a Active Directory. There is a server which is running Active Directory. And the protocol which will be working there, that will be LDAP protocol to transferring this or to help in this authentication process. Then it can be also local machine specific account. For example, you are not a part of domain or something. You are not using domain user account. You are using local user account. You just have a single laptop and there you want to just do the login. So we have the local user account there, and the local user account in Windows, it is generally stored in the SAM file. If you ever will go to the training of maybe cyber security or ethical hacking, you will be already doing some practical or experiment with the SAM file. What we do generally that, for example, I want to know what are the user accounts, what are their passwords are. We can dump the SAM file of some computer and we can do the experiment with it. We can break the password by using rainbow table crack or something. So those are something relevant to the cyber security. But as of now, what we can just understand that there are some technology like we can use Active Directory, we can use LDAP, we can use local machine account when we are talking about operating system access. But once we talk about application access, if you are accessing any application, that time which technology will be helping you? So to do the application access, again Active Directory can be helpful for us. Because in Active Directory you can specify that which user will have the rights to run which application. Secondly, we have the application user repository. There are so many applications, they already create its own repository, they use its own repository. For example, if you use SQL, if you use MySQL, those applications, they generally create automatically an user account, administrator user account. Like if you use SQL, no, if you install SQL, there will be already a group called SA, SQL administrator. So that kind of groups or repository will be automatically defined, created, and that will be helpful. That technology will be helping you to do the authentication in any application. So whenever somebody want to access the application, he should be the member of that group, or maybe he should be having the permission from that group. Then if we talk about in Amazon, if you are using any Amazon application, in that scenario there is a service called as Amazon Cognito. So you will be using this service to have the authentication of application on the Amazon. If we talk about AWS resources, like for example EC2, S3 bucket, EBS, so those resources which is available in AWS, if you want to do the authentication on that, what we use is we use IAM, Identity Access Management, and this is what we are learning right now. This is what our today topic is. So what is IAM is? I hope you understood now. It's a technology solution or it's a service offered by AWS to do the identity or authentication management for the AWS resources. Whatever resource is available there, you will be able to set the authentication on them. You will be able to set the access management on them. So now let's continue. Let's move to the next slide here about the IAM. So what is IAM here is, you can see AWS Identity and Access Management. That's the full name of IAM. I for identity, A for access, M for management. Meaning that it will be doing checking the identity. Thereafter it will be helping you to manage the access, who is having access of which resource. So IAM is a web service, meaning that you will be accessing it through your web and you will be able to use it, and it enable us to make users and group permission in AWS. So we will see these things also in the next session, as well as let's try to understand what are the IAM other things it can support for. So it can help us to do the authentication, it can help us to do the authorization, it can help us to do the user management, creating user, creating group, putting an user in any specific group, making a user part of or a member of a group. Those all we can do through the IAM. We can check the authentication, we can do the authorization. I have already given you the difference between authentication and authorization, and then it can also help us to do central user repository. So these are the benefit we will be getting by using the IAM, Identity and Access Management. Next point comes that why do we need IAM? What is the requirement? Why do we need to have the IAM in AWS? So here you see the AWS admin account has a seamless privilege of the management console. If you are login with the admin account, if you log in with the root account, you have the seamless privilege. You can do whatever you want. But the thing is, the primary administrator objective are, the main root user will be doing what? They will first create multiple user with individual security credential and permission. Imagine you are working in a big company, enterprise level company. Do you think that you alone will be able to perform all the tasks? Or do you think that there will be a group of people who will be performing different tasks? If you are with me telling that the second is the right option, meaning that there will be a group of people, there will be multiple users, they will be given some specific kind of task, like maybe you will have a dedicated person who will be controlling the maybe a storage part, there will be some specific IT person who will be taking care of maybe networking of the cloud, there will be maybe some specific person who will have just monitoring function, read only function, he will not be able to perform any task. So there will be so many number of user, there will be requirement of so many user accounts, and we are going to set different permission to those user accounts. So that is what it is mentioning, that being a root user, your task will be that create multiple user account with individual security credentials. So meaning that they will have different login credential and security credential with different permission, who will do what. Next is provide desired access to authorized user only. That is the part of CIA. When we talk about the cyber security, there is a term called as a CIA, confidentiality, integrity and availability. So confidentiality, when we talk about confidentiality, what does it say? That the data or the resource should be only and only accessed by the authorized user. For example, you have a file. That file contains the sales report of a month. Do you think it will be good that if that file is being accessed by any person who is not belongs to sales department, maybe he is just a client, or maybe he is maybe let's say that he is any other type of user account, not from the sales department. So what does it mean? That we have to maintain the confidentiality. Similarly here, it is telling that provide the desired access to the authorized user only. no any non-authorized user should have the access of any resource. That will be the priority here. And the third thing is each user is allowed to do only what they need to do. For example, you have a user account. So this user account, maybe this guy is known as, let's say that his name is George, or maybe his name is Paul. So if this guy is known as Paul, this user account should be having only the rights what he's supposed to have. For example, he is a IT guy. He is maybe the IT technician. So he should not be having the full privilege to maybe delete the EC2 instance, terminate the EC2 instance. Maybe you give him the power to run the EC2 instance, stop the EC2 instance, but maybe you don't want to give him power to terminate. Because once he terminate, there is no option to recover it. But once he has stopped, at least you have option to start it. So different condition can be, and I like so much about IAM that it gives very nice way of managing those all different permission with a very deep level concept. So let's move to the next slide now. What are the AWS IAM features are? When we are using IAM from AWS, what are the good features? What are the features it has? So you can see in this diagram also, and it is mentioned here as well. So let's first finish this side. It gives shared access to your AWS account integrated with AWS service. That's the one feature. Second is granular permission. That is what I was talking about, that I like most about IAM, granular permission. What can be the smallest level permission we can set? For example, if we take an example of any computer, what is the smallest part there? Any file. So if you are able to set a permission on file basis, it means it is giving you really a very deep level of permission. It is giving you very deep level of security. So IAM is having a feature of granular permission. You can be able to set the permission even on the file basis. A smallest part of a smallest object or a smallest resource, whatever is there, on the basis of that also you can set the permission, you can set the policies there. Third point is important one is PCI DSS. It is nothing else, it's like a standard actually which is being followed there by AWS, and that's why it is mentioned in the feature. So what this standard is, full name is, it is called as a Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard Compliance. So this is something like a standard which has to be followed. So whenever if your company goes for auditing, whenever you go for any kind of test or something, they look for this standard, that either your authentication process and everything, is it following this standard or not? So the answer is yes, because IAM support that standard, it provide that standard. Third point is secure access to AWS resource with MFA. So as I promised, today itself, in this session itself, I am going to demonstrate you the practical of MFA for the root user. But it is saying that secure access to AWS resource with MFA. You can set MFA, multi-factor authentication, for any of the resource, so that there will be less chances of having any repudiation. So again, if I talk about the cyber security world, there is a term called repudiation. What does it mean that? It means that maybe some user is having a right to, let's say that, delete a file. But maybe somebody else has deleted the file. Or maybe that user has deleted the file and thereafter he denies that no, I am not the one who deleted. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say that your company is having 2 IT administrators. And if you are not using different user account for them, let's say that you have created user account system admin. Maybe you have just created an user account system admin with a password, maybe I'm just taking example, very simple, 123. And you have asked both the IT person of your company that use this credential, and this credential is having full right to perform all the tasks, whatever your role is. What will happen? You will find at any day that maybe one guy is working in day time, one guy is working in maybe night shift. So you have given them the same credential, you use it. For you have given, you have used a very shortcut method. But the problem is, what if one guy out of those two deletes something and he doesn't accept? He tells that another guy is also having the same credential. Maybe he is the one who deleted with this credential. How will you get to know that who was the actually the guy who deleted the file? Because your computer maintains the log file, but log file will only show you which user has deleted. So you have given the same username, same password, same identity for both the IT person. So will you be able to figure it out? Answer is no. So this situation is called as a repudiation, and we have to talk non-repudiation when we talk about that is what we have to take care of. So even giving you, if you are giving them username and password separate, but what if they disclose it? What if they share with each other? How will you make sure that who is the right person? So for that, the better idea is to use multi-factor authentication. For example, I have two users. One is called as a Paul, one is called as a Joseph. So I will create an user account for Paul, I will create one user account for Joseph, and I will set multi-factor authentication for both of them, maybe with the mobile number or something. So when Joseph want to log into the system, he not only need to know the password, but after typing password, there will be a message sent to his mobile number. Once he type that code, which he received as an SMS, then only he will be able to log in. So now you imagine one day maybe Joseph delete a file, he cannot deny that he has not deleted it. He cannot say that Paul has deleted it because Paul is not having the mobile phone of Joseph. So how come Paul can log in with the credential of Joseph? So this way you are going to set the multiple, or you can say multi-factor authentication. By setting multiple things, that means you require multiple things to do the login. We can set it with the so many number of things. We can set it with maybe any of the biometric things. We can set it with the maybe card. So there are so many number of tricks are there to set the MFA, but today I will also talk about what type of MFA is being supported by the AWS. Otherwise, if we talk about in a general way, when we talk about MFA in general, we are having a term called as a hack. HAK. So generally when we set multi-factor authentication, we take care of this terminology. H means have. The user who is logging in, he should have something. He should, this A for R means the one who is he. For example, I am Saurav and I want to log in. So R is me. For example, my retina, that is comes under category of R, who you are. So my retina cannot be replaced with somebody else. That is comes under category of R, my thumbprint. Any biometric things can come under the A, my signature. Then K is something which you know, maybe like password, it comes under category of know. You know the password, you know the PIN number. And H means it can be something, maybe you have given a card or something to your user that this card will require whenever you want to do any kind of login. For example, when you go to the ATM to withdraw the money, you have something. What you have? ATM card. You have. What you know the PIN. Similarly, you can set multiple kind of this kind of things to do the login process on your AWS, on your normal computer, on your Gmail account, everywhere, and that is what called as a multi-factor authentication. And the last point about the IAM, if I talk about, that is it is free to use. As we talked, there are many services which is being offered by AWS, and many of them are paid version. But when we talk about IAM, you don't have to pay any money to use the IAM service there. So this is all about here IAM. Here we have some other things like it provide consistent, it is integrated, it has multi-factor authentication which I talked about, identity federation it has, secure access to AWS. So these all are the feature of AWS IAM. Now let's move to the next. What are the IAM components are? So we can see there are four major components or main components are of IAM. Those are IAM user, IAM group, IAM role and IAM policy. So this is very important question. It generally comes in the exam as well as in interview if you are applying for a job where you are going to manage the AWS cloud. They may ask you what are the main component of IAM. So we have user, we have groups, we have roles and policy. Let's try to understand them, all of them one by one. So let me start with user first. What is user? We all know what is user account is, right? Either you're using Windows machine, Linux machine, or even if you're using any, let's say that Wi-Fi or router or a switch, there we create user account. That is nothing else, it's a identity to show or to prove that who you are, right? So what is IAM user is? It consists of name and unique credential with the access key, or you can set MFA files. So if you have set multi-factor authentication, you will be having, it will be having multi-factor authentication there also. It will have an access key and some unique credential with the name. You can have different name for different user account. Second point about IAM is each IAM user is associated with only one AWS account. Obviously, the name which you are going to give, the one user will be only associated with one account. Third point is IAM user can be given the access through the console, or either you can give them programmatic access. This part, if you remember, we did practically also in some of the previous session. That once you create any user account, you can set that this user account can access your AWS through a console, or you want them to access through the programmatic access, through some program, through CLI, through some specific program. So that is what it means, that when you are going to create an user account, that time you can set that this user will be accessing your resource, they will be getting the AWS services or resources through a console, or either you want to give to have the access only through some program, not through the console. Next point is, once we talked about IAM user, now we are going to talk about IAM groups. So what is group is here? Simply, it is a collection of IAM users. You can have a group, and in that group you can keep, you can make member that one group can have multiple user account. So here I have mentioned also that a group can contain multiple users. Maybe you have a single group like call it just sales, and you have maybe 20 employee who works in your sales department. So you can put all those 20 user account into the sales group simply. And it is also possible that a single user can be attached to multiple group. Maybe you have one user account, he is taking care of maybe sales department also, and maybe he is taking care about IT also. So you can keep that user member of sales group also and IT group also. That is also possible. Then one more point here is specify and manage permission for multiple users. So maybe if you have multiple user and you want to specify some special kind of permission on them, rather than setting one by one on each user, what we can do is we can set that permission on a group, and whoever the user needs that same kind of permission, we can put that user into the member of that group. So group help us to manage easily the permissions as well. We can say in a shortcut that, for example, you have multiple user account. Let's say that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 number of user account. And today you want to set some special permission which applies to all these 20. So the better idea is you create a group. Always keep in your mind, when you are creating a group, you always create on the basis of some condition. For example, let's say that these all 20 works in a one department, then you can create a group for their department. Maybe these all are having access of some special kind of data in your company. You can create a folder here. You can create a group here with relevant to that name, and you can keep all these 20 users member of that group. And then you will set the policy, whatever policy or permission you make, that permission you set to this group, and by default it will be applied to all the user account who are member of that group. Now let's move to the next thing, that is IAM roles. What is IAM role is? So role means, I hope you understand already what is the meaning of role. Role is something like what will be the role for you. For example, I create an user account. So what role I want to give to him, that what he can do, that is role. So identity with the permission policies that determine what the identity can or cannot do in AWS is what we determine through the role. Like in previous session, we have talked about, we have gone through some of the tasks. For example, we did auto scale. So when we were doing practical of auto scale also, there was already auto created role also. So similarly, there are so many different roles are there which can define that which user can do what and cannot do what. So it is not associated with one person or application. It is just a role created, and then after, whenever you create any user account, you can define that role to him. You can connect that role to that user account so that that user will have that role to perform. It does not have any credential, does not have any access key, it does not have any credential, but access key are created automatically there. So generally when we talk about role means, you are defining the power. For example, let me tell you like this. Let's say that administrator, what it is a kind of role. What you can do, power administrator. So what it is a kind of role. You are having a role of power administrator. You can do anything related to power on your system. So similarly, there are so many different type of roles are there, and that role, when you give to some user, that user will be in a condition to perform some task and in a condition to not be able to perform some task. Then the last thing is IAM policies. So what is policies is, you can organize IAM users into IAM group. So first maybe you have a user, you will put a member of a group, and then you will attach a policy to a group. So what is policy is? If you remember group policy in Windows, I hope you will understand very well what is policy is, what it can do. You set some condition. So there is a different permission type you can set in the policy. Like you can set on the basis of identity based or resource based. You can set permission on two types. For example, identity based means which user, maybe like you have a user account. So on the basis of user account, if you set the policy that this user can do this, so that is identity based policy. Another is resource based. So maybe you have a resource, maybe a folder, maybe a file, maybe a EC2 instance. On the basis of that, then you set maybe some special kind of policy that this resource will be only accessed by this group, this group, this group. In that condition, who is the center point? Center point is your resource. You are setting policy on resource, that this resource will be accessed by who and what. So we can set policy or permission either on the identity based, either on the resource based. Next point is, IAM policy are going to have the JSON. It is JavaScript Object Notation, formatted document that defines AWS permission. So you guys, if you want to really be in a very good of managing IAM, then I will recommend you to have some knowledge of JSON. It's a language, it's a program which you have to learn. But actually AWS, or you can say like Amazon, they also know that all of the users, they are not programmer. It's not possible that every user is knowing programming. So that's why they have preferred to use JSON, because JSON command, if you go and read about it, when you check it, it is very easy to understand. Any even normal people, I mean those who are not a programmer, those who having a background of IT, but they are not, they have not gone for any training of programming or something, they can also easily understand by reading the code that what does it mean. It is very in a clear format, and anybody can read and understand that code, that what does it mean. So that is the plus point about IAM is it is using JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, and the data, the document is in this format which define the AWS permission. So by default, you have a graphical way also to set the policy, but graphical is obviously having some limitation. If you go beyond that limitation, you have to learn JSON, and then you will be able to make your own customized policy, and you can use that policy also. So that was all about the four major component of the IAM. We have talked about user, we have talked about groups, we have talked about roles, we have talked about the policies. So now it's time to talk about types of IAM policy. What are the type of IAM policy are? So there are two categories are. One is called as a managed policy, one is called as a inline policy. So in a shortcut way I can tell you that one is managed policy, means there will be some predefined type of policy. But when we talk about in inline policy, you will be able to manage your own policy that is embedded directly into a single entity. You can set a policy on a specific entity, like on the user basis, on the group basis, on the role basis. You will be able to create and manage your own policy. That type of IAM policy, we push them into the category of inline policy, where the automatic whatever is there predefined, those are known as a managed policy. So the default policy you can attach to multiple entities like users, group and role in your AWS account. There are two types again, AWS managed policy and customer managed policy. There are some policy which will be managed by AWS. AWS gives you already the list of those policy, and you can use them, you can choose them. There another one is customer managed policy. So it is also created and managed by the end customer. Maybe your company will create some of the policy, and that policy will be given to you as an user, and you will be able to set, you will be able to use them. So these are the types of IAM policies are. Now that was all about the theoretical part. There are some more theory remaining related to IAM, which I will be covering in the next session. So in today's session, we are finished with the theoretically explanation about IAM. Now it's time to move to some practical part. So we are going to perform some practical related to MFA, multi-factor authentication. So to perform this practical, let me directly move to my browser. And in my browser, I am going to log in with my AWS account. So let us go to sign into the console. Here you see right now I'm going to log in with the root user, right? So when I log in with it, it is not having multi-factor authentication. So it is just asking me the username, and then it is asking me the password simply. So let me type the password here. And then I am able to log in. So this means there is no any multi-factor authentication enabled right now. And this is what we are going to perform in today's practical. We are going to see how to do the multi-factor authentication. So to do that, we have to go to the services, and we will be looking there in the list of security, identity and compliance. There is an option of IAM, or either you can just search here also IAM. It will come by itself. So let's go to this IAM service offered by AWS. Here you see this is the dashboard. In the dashboard, you can see how many number of user account I have, how many groups I have, how many roles I have, how many identity providers I have, customer managed policies are there, how many. These are the things we have discussed theoretically, right? User group policies are of two type. One is customer managed policy. So here is the dashboard. It is just displaying something. In your scenario, maybe if you want to give this part, we have discussed before also, that if you want to give a specific kind of link, you want to have a customized link to log in by the other users, to use by the other user who want to do login at your AWS service, then you can customize it from here. You can go there. By default it will be like this when you have not customized. So you can go to customize, and you can give a shortcut name. Maybe I give the name SKS Lab, Saurabh Kumar Lab. Let me try like that. It should be a bit unique. So it is saying that it is already used by somebody. Let me use SKS Lab. So that is now shortcut. If anybody want to log in, no, they will be using this link. They will be using this link to log in. So this part I have already explained you in a previous sessions, that you can, this way you will be able to give. Actually now it is going to already log in because it is in the same browser. But again you can see now it is going to log in. It is giving that it is already logged in with this name, and then you need to type your username and password and you can sign in whatever user account if you have created. But that is not part of our lab today. Sorry, let me re-log in here. Our concern part for today's lesson is about this one you see here. First thing it is telling that delete your root access key, because it is always recommended to not use the root user to perform any task, because root is having full privilege and it can do anything. So better is to always use any other user account. Maybe you can give the permission also as similar like root, but don't use root. So that is okay here. Second thing you check here that it is telling activate MFA on your root account. To secure your root account, what you can activate? MFA, multi-factor authentication. Like the way right now I was logging in, I was just using the user ID and password. So that means it is not having multi-factor authentication. So that's why it is giving me a warning that please activate your MFA on the root account, so that at least the root account cannot be directly log in with any other person. To stop any kind of that less secure function, you should activate the MFA. So that is what practically we are going to perform today. We are going to see today. So let's expand this, and here is the option called manage MFA. Before I go there, let me give you a small brief on it. So let us use this learn more part. Here from you will be able to get to know. So I will recommend you all to go to this page and read from here the detail about what is MFA is. So what is MFA is, how does it work, and here you see we have these are the options which we can use to do the MFA in AWS. First option is virtual MFA device. Second is U2F security key. Third is hardware MFA device, and fourth one is SMS text message based MFA. These are the four options AWS is giving us to enable the MFA on the root user account of AWS. But out of these four, if you read about the note, it is telling me that AWS will soon end support for SMS multi-factor authentication. Means this fourth one is going to be removed very soon. And AWS is recommending to use upper three, any one of these three only, not the fourth one. Fourth one is there, but they are telling that very soon we will end the support for this. We are not allowing new customer to preview this feature. We recommend that existing customers switch to one of the following alternative method, that can be either virtual MFA, U2F or hardware only. Don't use the last one. That's the recommendation given by the AWS. So as of now, if somebody asks you how many type of MFA setting we can have in AWS, there are 4, but in maybe near future there will be only 3. This will be removed from there. So let me try to explain you in a small way, in a shortcut way, what does it mean actually. So for this one, it means virtual MFA device means you require any device where it is same like you are maybe having a Android phone or maybe iPhone or something, or any device where you are going to have a virtual MFA device. You don't need to buy any hardware device, and that virtual device will be taking care of the multi-factor authentication. Second is U2F security. So there you require a device that you plug in into a USB port of your computer. So here you need to have a device. You have to buy a device, and then you will be able to perform this. As well as when we talk about the third category also, hardware MFA device, a hardware device that generates a 6-digit numeric code based upon a time synchronized one-time password algorithm. So, and both of these two services also paid service actually. So let us go with the first option, that is free to use and this one we don't need any specific hardware device also. What we need is anything as a virtual things. So let me show you the practical with the help of the first one, that is virtual MFA. Are we clear with it? So let us continue with this function. So now again I go back and I go to manage MFA. Here you get the option of multi-factor authentication. You see here the password option is also there. If you want to maybe change the root user password, you will be able to change from here. But right now today we are just learning about MFA. So let me go to MFA and here is the button of activate MFA. I want to activate multi-factor authentication so that next time when I try to log in with the root user account, only the username and user ID and password will not be sufficient. I need to have something else to log in and to perform the login process. So let me click on activate MFA and you see there are three options only I am getting. One is through the virtual MFA, one is through U2F, and third is other hardware MFA device. So as I said, I am going to perform with the help of first where the authenticator app installed on your mobile device or computer. So we need an authenticator app installed on our laptop or maybe on mobile device. And the good part about it, there is app available in a Google Play Store, or if you are using Apple, it is available there also. You can download, you can install, and you will be able to use it to do the multi-factor authentication. So let me use this method. For that I need to perform some more tasks. What is the next task I need to perform here is, so to use this virtual MFA, I have to install Google Authenticator app in my smartphone. What does it mean? That I have to have a mobile phone and I am going to install this app there, Google Authenticator app there from Google Play Store, and then I will be able to demonstrate this practical. So let me show you what will be the step here. So obviously I am going to perform this task of installing this application on your mobile phone. So as I said that this task I am going to perform on my mobile phone. So let me maybe share my mobile phone screen here, so that I will be able to show you what I am doing at my on my mobile phone. So for that task, let me use some tool. So I hope now you will be able to see that I am sharing my screen, and now what I am going to do actually is I go to Play Store on my mobile phone. And here I will be searching here Authenticator app for Google. You can directly type the name also, Google Authenticator, or you can just type there Authenticator app Google. So let me search with this name, and this is the app I am talking about. Can you see on the screen? It is Google Authenticator. So this is the app I am going to download on my phone, and this will be helping me to perform the MFA task. So let me click on install button here. So now you can see it is being downloaded and installed. It's a very small app. So I have downloaded this app now. So once this app is there, I am clicking on open. It gives some information about it, like it is a stronger security with Google Authenticator, get verification code for all your account using two-step verification, simple setup using your camera, a unique code used to sign in. So these are some of the information. I'm clicking on get started. Now here you see, to do the setup you have two choices. Either you can do the scan a QR code, or either you can do enter a setup. So what I am going to do now is, because my mobile phone is ready to scan the QR code, so this is the button I will be clicking on it. So once I will click on it, it will be ready. I am clicking on allow. So now it is going to do the scan, but that will be not display here for security reason. So now I go to this side, and here I am choosing this option, clicking on continue. So here it will be generated a QR code, and that is the QR code I am going to actually scan with my mobile phone. So I'm going to scan, and once I scanned, actually I'm getting some code. Again, that will be not displayed here. Sorry about that, because it is for security reason. You can see I'm still having mobile phone, but it is giving me some 6-digit code, and that code I need to now come here and type. That is the requirement now. When I scan this QR code in my application, it has generated a code, and that code I am typing here. So I am typing the code here now. Let me retry it once again, because it has a time limit. Guys, it has a time limit. So within that time I have to perform that task. So let me repeat once again. I click on open, and it is generating some keys. So that code I have to just click on it. So I go here and I type those code. Then within some time, because every code which is coming on my screen of mobile phone, it is only valid for few seconds, like I guess 30 seconds only. So within 30 seconds the code is getting changed, and whatever the next code comes, that I will be able to use here as a second one. And then I click on assign MFA. It is telling me invalid MFA code. So let me again try. I have 5, 7, 2, 6, 7, 8. Let me try again. So I click on assign MFA, and now here you see the on a screen, you have successfully assigned virtual MFA. That means my task is completed now. I have already enabled MFA there. If you want to test it again, till the time this app is open on my phone, I am not able to show you on the here a screen, because for the security reason, whenever this app is open, the screen cannot be shared. So once I minimize it, then you will be able to see that yes, my phone is still connected and I have used that app. So whenever I will again open that app, no, it will again generate a code, and that is not going to display here. So anyway, let's go back and check here. So if I go back again to the dashboard, you see here the second option is in a green color, telling that activate MFA on your root account is already done. So now it's time to test. Let's test it, either it is okay, it is working or not. So for that testing purpose, I log out, I sign out from my user account. And as I said, we have enabled MFA there now. So what will happen now if I go to sign in? This time when I am logging with the root user account, I need three things. One is my email address, second is the password, and the third thing will require this time, that is MFA code. Can you see it? So that MFA code is nothing else. How I will get it? So I have to go to my mobile phone, and there I have to look for that app. I open it, and when I open, I get a code there, and that code I need to type here. And then I click on submit. And now you can see this is way I am able to now log in here. So I hope you are able to understand that how we set the MFA for the root user account. So every time when I log in now with the root user account, I need to have three things: the email ID, password, plus my mobile phone with me, where I have downloaded the app of Authenticator. And whenever I log in, I have to open that app will give me a code. That code will be valid for 30 seconds only. I have to type that code, and then only I will be able to sign in, then only I will be able to log in. So now if you go to IAM, you will be able to see from there also that MFA is working fine for my root user account. Let me also tell you how you can remove it. So the removing will be very easy. You can expand, click on manage MFA, go there, and you see when it is like this, that means it is already activated. So go to manage button and you have resync and remove. So this option is not available for U2F security key, and we are not going to use it also. Right now we are just using different method. So let me go with the option of remove. Click on remove, and by doing this task only, I have removed the MFA again. So if I have removed, if I again go to dashboard, you can see there is a warning again coming that activate your MFA, meaning that now there is no any MFA working at all. So let me again prove it. Let me sign out. I click on sign in. So because again MFA is not activated, I need only two things to do the login process, that is my email ID and the password. So this time there is no any requirement of MFA. You see, I am able to log in without any MFA because MFA is right now disabled. It is not activated, it is deactivated. So that was all. That is what I have shown you here. So I have shown you MFA by using virtual MFA, and for that I install Google Authenticator app in my smartphone. Thereafter I configure MFA in Amazon free tier account. So I hope you are okay with this all. So as I said in the starting of this session that we will be having a overview and theoretically discussion about IAM. Then at the end of the video we will be having a look at the MFA, how to configure MFA, how to activate MFA. So that was all in this session. Let us go to now one or two questions with it. So first question goes to you all that list the 4 major IAM components. So I hope you all know what are the name of those 4 IAM components are. Then the second question goes to you all that IAM support auditing and MFA. Do you think it's true or false? So I hope once I have already shown you with the practical, there will be no any confusion of giving this question answer that either it is a true or either it is a false. So that was all in this particular session. I hope this video was informative enough for you all, and I would like to thank you for watching.